When did you complete your Keeping Kids Central training?
I completed it, I think, about 12 months ago. I think now it would probably be close to 12 months, I think, yeah.
Yeah, no, it was about then. And so how did completing the Keeping Kids Central training your day-to-day practice within CYP?
Well, so 100% of interviews I've done with children since I've done the training, I've printed out the booklet and brought it along. In every single, 100% in every single.
All About Me, the All About Me booklet.
The All About Me book, yeah.
And why did you do that? Why did you print it out and bring it along?
Because what I do is I print it out in colour and I lay it out and I spread it all out and I go, now what are we going to do today? Let me have a think about this. And I bring along some Crayola smelly textures, you know, the ones that smell like
really
watermelon
nice
or
strawberry. Love
whatever it is.
Yep.
And I'll go, do you want to use pencils or textures, and will you do an activity with me? And they'll go, oh, well, I'll do an activity, yes. And I said, well, choose your favourite colour, and then they'll choose watermelon or whatever it is, and then we'll complete the activity together. So what it does is it provides me with, I get, not to sound cliche, but a toolbox that I can use, and depending on the child's interests, because often I don't know who they are when I go out.
Yep.
So depending on what they reveal to me in their interests or what their age or the development age is, I'll pick and choose. I often stick to a few of my favourites, but we'll pick and choose the activity to do, and we'll do it together.
Yeah, nice.
It's a good icebreaker.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
It helps me with different questions to ask, and then from there I can ask a list of questions based on that. So it opens a door for me to then ask more and more questions.
Mm-hmm.
I often pair the books with another activity, either Play-Doh or colouring in.
Great.
It's usually colouring in because my ages are around about 7 to about 15.
So you would use that All About Me with that age range, the 7 to 15. So it's covering that whole. Great. Okay.
Yeah, the whole age range, and obviously I'll tweak it depending on their age. So, for example, if I start talking to a child and we talk about things that are just general questions like things that they like to do at home, they often say, I like to cook. So therefore, I know I get out that All About Me page that has the pans, the pot pans.
Absolutely.
And so I'll pitch it. We'll match it up as much as I can.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So it's a really good tool to use. And like I said, I've used it in every single interview I've done, and I do interviews every other week, I reckon.
Yeah. Okay. And so with the 15-year-olds, you don't feel that it's pitched too low or that the activities don't suit, or when you said that you tweak it, can you give me an example of something that you might do for, say, a 15-year-old or a 14-year-old?
Well, it depends on so many factors. There are some 15-year-olds who I wouldn't use with it.
Yep.
With them at all, and they are generally children or young people who have a little bit more street smarts or a little bit more life experience. But the children who are, have stayed in, have been at home and have disclosed something, but maybe not have a huge amount of history, or maybe they do, or it's just there's a 15-year-old that's more like an adult, and there's a 15-year-old that's more like a 12-year-old, for example. And so that group I would pitch to. Yep. With my 15-year-olds who are a little bit older, and I used this strategy on a 10-year-old recently because she was very parentified. Yeah. And my strategy was, I still used an activity, but I said to her, now, Rayanne, who was the caseworker, said to me that you're very grown up for a 10-year-old, and sometimes you're more like an adult than a young kid. So can I talk to you like a young adult? Is that okay if I have a conversation with you, as an adult? And she's like,
of course.
Oh, yes, of course I can. I was like, great. So I'm going to ask you a few questions and then we'll do an activity together. Is that okay? And she's like, oh, yes, of course. So like I'm presenting it.
Yeah,
Like I'm
beautiful.
pre-facing it all. And,
beautiful.
and she loved it. So that's my strategy with my older 15-year-olds is that I pre-face it with we're going to have a grown-up conversation and I want to do this activity with you as well.
Yeah, and I like the way that you said that it opens the doors for you. You know, it's kind of starts the conversations and it gets those doors open to, you know, more questions or a deeper level. And I really like how you said, you know, with the activities that you've got also something maybe constructive like with their hands so that they can do something with their hands while you're having those conversations, because it takes all the attention away from them and they can focus on something that they're doing with their hands and let their mind kind of wander a bit.
And I think for me, that activity, whether it's the activity from the kids' central book or whether it's Play-Doh or drawing, that's the primary thing that I'm there for. And then the interviews around that. Rather than I'm there to interview and then we do Play-Doh, it is we're doing Play-Doh and I'm going to ask you a few questions while we do that. So the questions are interweaved. They're not bang, 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 although sometimes they might be a little bit, but they are usually, hey, I really like the way you're doing that. Can you show me how you do that, Snow? Oh, cool. So tell me what things are like at home. So the questions are secondary to the activity, but the kids don't know that. Like the kids are all,
And I love the way that you put that, Lauren, that you said that you're there with the child first, with the activities, and then the interview questions come later. Because to me, in doing that, you're putting the child at the centre of what you're actually doing, and that they're the most important reason that you're there. Not the questions.
No, exactly. And I even do that in forensic interviews as well. So obviously when it becomes a little bit more forensic and you know that switch between when you're there to have a general interview about life at home and then it turns forensic.
Yes.
Then I can start, then the questions are more, the quantity of questions, there's more quantity for questions per time. So they come a little bit faster, a little bit quicker because I need that forensic evidence. But I also still go, I try and engage them in that conversation in a physical way. So I'll go, can you show me on your body what that looked like? That kind of stuff. So I'm still trying to engage them a little bit differently, but still extracting that really forensic information.
Yeah, great. Okay. So that's kind of, we've talked about, you know, the next question was describe the key strategies or concepts that you took away from KKC training. And you've to me, you've done that perfectly. You've talked about the fact that you put the child at the centre, that the activities come next, and then the interview questions and the questions that you need to ask, because that's why you're there, are kind of, you know, they come last. They're not the most important thing. And also, as you said, it's not, you don't list them out. You don't have to kind of tick it off. It's a conversation that you're having with the child. And mixed into that, you also, as you said, you're getting them up to show you something physical on their body. Or maybe would you relate it back to their picture and go, can you tell me more about what you just drew there? And do you want to try the strawberry one? Because the strawberry one's my favourite. It's about trying to, you know, make them more comfortable and bring them back into the room and back into the activity that you're actually doing. Yeah.
I also like the booklets because they get to draw and write on them as well. So the last child I interviewed, I said, now, do you want me to write or do you want to write? And he goes, oh, no, I'll write. And I'll go, okay, and do you want to read out the questions or me? I'll read because I'm a level 23 reader, you know. And I was like, wow, you're a very good reader. And look at you writing your name. Like it was, they could have a moment of accomplishment, like they could demonstrate and show off their skills.
Absolutely. And that was all about them, not about what you were there to ask them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. To be more child-centered and child-focused in their practice. So it's kind of, this is a kind of two questions in one. So what are some of the ways that CYPS does that? And then do you have your own strategies that you use? And so I guess what I'm asking that question in terms of CYPS is, you know, for the newer staff that come in, are there key things that, you know, CYPS has put in place for you that you use? And how have you added to those? And obviously you've added to those maybe through using the Keeping Kids Central tool.
Yeah. So I do understand that the brand new people have, like the level 1 workers have an induction process that they go through. So it's pretty much in every single training they get through that. It's grilled into them pretty well. In supervision, they talk about it as well as part of that supervision framework, and it's documented. Some of the things that I do specifically is I do role plays through my practice powerhouses where I'll demonstrate the work, what the practice of the engagement looks like in almost every single training I've facilitated. Now, these are not really long trainings. They go for about 45 minutes. You get in and you get out. Like you get in, you do all the work and then you leave.
Yeah.
They are based on reflection questioning. So I'll have up, say on my board, I'll have a stick figure of a child and I go, okay, tell me about this child's risk environment. And so they are asked to explore about what is going on for that child.
Okay.
Using a case, that's coming in allocations during the week, for example, or a vignette I've put together.
Mm-hmm.
So getting them to think not only about the child's immediate environment, but their home risk environment as well.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't put the impact of COVID-19 in relation to that child somewhere, I'll be asking why.
Yeah.
So I do a fair bit of that. I do a lot of case analysis work as well. So I'll put the child's name on the board and I'll go, okay, tell me about this child. And the caseworker has to then describe this child. And then I'll go, okay, so if this were to happen, what would they do? So even getting them to go back one step further and understanding a hypothetical scenario so we could understand their future risk as well. Yeah. And the caseworkers are able to reveal so much information about the child that they didn't even know was in their brain.
Yes, because it's a conversation.
Because it's a conversation as well.
Yeah.
I have at my desk a toolbox of things that I lend out, like a box of Play-Doh, pens, texters, coloured cardboard that we might cut out together. And I've started to print out the Central Toolbook toolkit every time I go out to a new client rather than just keeping it at my desk now. Yeah. But it's there on the wall. So that's the kind of stuff that CSD do and I do specifically. So I did the training last year.
Yep.
And one of my key messages that I took away from it, I know this was one of the questions, is around the weighting of the children's opinions and perspectives.
Yeah.
So there was a video that we saw in the training and I played that back a few weeks after the training. I played it back in one of our boardrooms for people to discuss. So I've seen it a few times now. So I always bang on about that now is what is the child saying? What are they saying to you? But also what's the function of that? Like what's the function of their behaviour and why, like what other things could the child mean by that and how do we find out that answer as well? So anyway.
That's fantastic because that's totally listening to the voice of the child. Yeah. Giving due weight to the voice of the child, placing their best interests as a priority, not listening to the carer, but actually listening to what the children are trying to tell you and what's in their best interest, which is, I don't want to be with this person. Exactly. And it's that simple.
Exactly. And the video talked a little bit about children with disabilities not being listened to. And I was like, oh my God, like it was just a light bulb moment for me. Yeah. And I work with children with disabilities or suspected disabilities very differently now, and even parents with suspected disabilities or cognitive impairments very differently too. Yeah. I'm heavily pictorial now. Great. Everything I say is with pictures and images because me explaining a 28-day appraisal to a parent with a cognitive impairment is not going to work.
Yeah, and that video you're talking about is the findings from the Royal Commission when we spoke to the children and young people who were in care. That's right, and that was such a powerful. Just hearing their voices and seeing the stats. There's not much clearer information and evidence.
Exactly.
That
was very powerful.
Yeah, no, totally. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you so much. Is there anything else that you wanted to add, like, you know, for new workers, child protection workers, in terms of keeping kids central, or is there anything you know, would want to add to them or say to them?
I think what I'm really noticing is missing, and perhaps this is the part of the part B of that question, is what we need to do more of, is that our young people, our new workers coming in are often don't have a lot of life experience. Some live on their own, some go home to mum and dad, and whatever it is, they don't have a lot of life experience. And what they really miss is that overall global messaging that we give to kids. So, for example, I'll often, if a kid's a little bit reluctant to work with me, or they don't trust me because they don't know me, which is understandable, I'll sit back and I'll have a principal in the room at my work, and I'll go, you know, every family needs support sometime in their, you know, in their life. You know, my kids and my family, and I'm sure Mrs. whoever, you know, and she'll go, oh, yeah. And I go, every family needs support. And I guess what I'm asking is, do you think is this the time that your family might need support right now? So see how I've done that overall global messaging about something, but our newer workers don't have that because they don't know what to say, or they don't know if they're allowed to. It's like they just come in, interview and leave. They don't have that. I can't really, the bigger, well, what's the bigger picture here? What's a really good message? Another one is around self-esteem. Like, they don't have a bigger picture message about a young girl who has low self-esteem. Like, they'll interview her, she says, I just don't like the way that I look, or something. And then they'll move on to the next question.
Without diving a little bit deeper.
Whereas I'll go, can you tell me a little bit more about that? Or what is it that you, like, when you look in the mirror, what do you see? And I'll go, you know, it's really common for young women of your age to see something different than what other people see.
Absolutely.
So see how I've done that bigger key messaging, but our workers are not doing that. So kids will be vulnerable and open to you and be vulnerable, and then we move on. We don't talk about it and sit with them in that space.
And I think that one of the principles, just bringing it back to KKC for a minute, one of the principles of KKC is that, you know, I'm one of a kind. And I think what you're saying in that there is, if I'm one of a kind, then make me feel like I'm one of a kind, and take the time to understand me as a unique person, and not leave it at that kind of that surface level, but question a little bit deeper to find out my uniqueness and to find out about the things that are important to me. Because maybe I'm not going to answer any other questions unless you kind of show me, as you're saying, that kind of that global messaging that, yes, there's all these other kids in the world, but you're really unique, and I really want to get to know you and to see and understand if there's any help that you might need to get through all of this. Bringing it back to them again, isn't it?
Exactly. That's exactly right. So,
No, that's awesome. Thank you.